welcome to The Life of Hair, and in this week's episode we're going to look at a fantastic teasy light technique where we're going to take my client's existing grown out, this is actually an air touch balayage that has grown out, and we're going to change it into a teasy light technique. We're going to take the colour further up the hair. Now you can see the hair is extremely dark, and even using a foiling technique like this, we are not going to expect to get more than 6 levels of lift. When you use a balayage technique or a freehand technique, one of the things that I see a lot is people expecting lots and lots of lift. Now we're going to create that lift by using foil and being able to incubate the colour in a foil and prevent that product from drying out. The thing that you find most of all is you see people talking about these techniques as balayages, and that is not necessarily a myth. I've seen people say it's not a balayage, it's a foilyage, it's whatever it is, it's an air touch. We are creating the effect of a lived-in blonde, which a lot of people would describe as a balayage. And I don't think it's wrong, nor is it necessarily right. I think what we need to be able to do is classify or determine the difference between each of these techniques, and that's really, really super important, because we need a way of everybody being able to communicate with our clients and not confusing the situation too much. Now, in terms of this technique, it's very, very straightforward. You've seen me do a couple of sections here. We're using a diagonal back section. We've split the head into 4 quadrants. It's really simple, and I'm using from ours kind of sectioning comb. I can't remember what it's called exactly, but I really like them, and I think they do a great job for like lots of different techniques. In some of the sections where the hair section's a little thicker and I've got like quite a dense section, I paint the product onto the foil first. If the hair section's slightly finer and I feel like I can saturate through that section without the need of painting onto the foil first, I will. I'm not going to overlap the ends because it's previously pre-lightened, and last time we actually turned the hair red and it's faded to this kind of pinky, reddish, slightly mahogany colour. We always used to do a mahogany colour previously in the past, and that's similar to what we're going to do today. We'll talk about that as we go through the technique. So in terms of the product that I'm using to lighten today, I'm using Goldwell's bleach, which is a 9-level lift bleach. I've been experimenting with bleaches recently. I'm going to make a little video all about that very, very soon. But it's really, really, I think it's important to know which are the best products out there and be able to kind of give good solid advice when people ask me these things. So I do go out of my way to buy or try as many products as humanly possible, and this has been a really, really fantastic bleach, and I can't wait to share with you my findings on which I think are the best bleaches on the market at the moment. But the technique, as you saw there, take a section about 1 centimetre, 1.5 centimetres, slice the top off it, then take our weave sections and then tease back towards the root area, pop a clip in it to make sure that we keep our tease in place and it doesn't slip as we apply our foils, and then we're going to work our product through nice and evenly. Now, as I mentioned previously, we're not going to go over these ends, they're already pre-lightened. This hair is very dark, and I always use 30 volume on this technique, front and back, and I just take the back out when it is red. One of the ways that I work, if I'm not going to use say 20 in the back and 30 in the front, I like to know that this hair is going to lift to the appropriate level within a reasonable time frame. I don't want to wait 2 hours for it to lift and go low and slow. I'm just not a fan of leaving the product on for any longer than the manufacturer recommends. And so in this particular instance, I'll take this back section out as soon as I've finished that front section. The application of this particular technique as well is nice and quick because we've got reasonably large sections in between each of our foils anyway. And what I will say is the section sizes decrease slightly as we work up towards the top of the head. We're probably into kind of more like 1 centimetre than 1.5 centimetres like we have been in this back section. And that also applies to the top section as we work through the partings as well, which I'll show you in just a second. But you'll see this section just felt a little bit thick, a little bit chunky, and so therefore I paint product onto the foil before I then go through and saturate that hair. And saturation, guys, I say it all the time, I've said this a million times, but if you're new to the channel, saturation, the amount of product you get into that packet, is of paramount importance to the success of any of your lightening techniques. It is so, so important. You'll hear that all over the internet. Not enough, actually, I don't think. I watch a lot of people's content, especially on Instagram, and there's not a huge amount of people kind of going on about the importance of saturation, but it's so, so, so massively important. And as we work up this technique, as you can see, I've already done the left-hand side, but as I'm onto this right-hand side, I'm just going to work diagonally across this crown area and end up over towards the section of which will become the parting section, and I'll show you that in just a second. So where I'm about to kind of head to is that area, and you'll see that the foil that I've just finished is kind of aiming diagonally towards the parting area. I like to work like that. It's not like absolutely paramount, but it's just the way that I go about it. Now this front section, at the front bottom hairline, I don't worry about those tiny little hairs around the ears. I know a lot of hairdressers get all funny about those. They're so short and very difficult to foil and can look spotty and a bit strange if you get into those hairs. And I know that Guy Tang quite often advocates that you avoid those little hairs as well. But then again, I've also seen other hairdressers say that it's absolutely, paramount that we get those. I think they look a bit strange when you get those weird little hairs around the hairline and start lightening them. They're also got a very, very high disposition to snap off. And I think it can be a little tricky to make them look very succinct, especially on a soft technique like this. Now, when I was working that first section, one of the things you probably noticed was the section wasn't very thick, but I painted the foil before I applied it. That was to ensure the product stuck to the foil, the hair stuck to the product, and therefore it was easier for me to apply the product and keep the foil in place, because we're not using kind of a very traditional foiling technique where the foil goes right up to the scalp area. So it does help to have that little bit of product on there to stick the hair to, saturate the product really evenly as well back each side of the section, and it saves you needing to kind of do lots and lots of brush strokes in each direction to create that saturation that's required. So we're onto the front hairline. Very, very simple. We're going to do these first couple of sections in the same way, but we're going to do them slightly closer together, and then we're going to space them out as we travel further back. It's not a money piece, guys, so don't think we're doing some kind of money piece technique here. It's just to get a little bit more brightness around the face for a change. It's not something that I've ever done with Linnell's hair here. Linnell's been a client of mine for a really, really long time. She's a brilliant, brilliant customer, and she comes in and she just trusts me to do the best with her hair, and she doesn't want it to be overly cool because she understands that that's not going to suit her skin tone. You can see her skin tone here is very warm, and I get a lot of clients that come in with very warm skin tones wanting super cool, and I just don't offer it to them because I just don't think it looks right, number one, and it's very, very hard for them to achieve and maintain. And I think you can be walking yourself into a bit of a trap if you allow yourself to be talked into doing a technique that is very, very hard for each of you to sustain and maintain. They're going to be needing to use brunette shampoos or silver shampoos or blue shampoos really, really regularly. And if they don't keep up their end of the maintenance, they're going to maybe blame you for their hair going warm and all these different things. You might not get the lift without damaging their hair. So I think it's really important that, if you don't want to hem yourself into colour corrections and, people phoning you up saying my tone's faded warm, you've really got to be very, very upfront and honest. Linnell's asked me to dye her hair silver in the past. Could you imagine the maintenance and how difficult that would be for each of us to successfully keep that beautiful colour that we could achieve maybe once or twice going for a long period of time? And that's something that we need to factor into all of our consultations. The consultations are king to making sure that your client leaves with something that is sustainable, that they're happy with, that that you can repeat easily and successfully on the shop floor without causing yourself a massive drama. And I've seen so many stylists promise things that means that they run over, they're there sweating about the result of this particular technique that they've promised this individual, and they've caused themselves an undue amount of stress and strain, all because they're trying to maybe be a bit of a people pleaser, which I know as hairdressers we can be really guilty of people pleasing. But ultimately what we end up doing is just upsetting ourselves. You know, we go away and think about it for days and weeks, and you know, some of these things we never forget, and the client's not happy either, and that can be quite expensive in terms of redoing their hair, etc. So here's the end result of the nail's hair. It's beautiful and soft. It just seamlessly blends out from her root area. We used a mocha shade in terms of the toner, so that would be like an 8.8 in, say, Matrix, or an 8.35 in some ranges. It would be an 8.32 or a GV, gold violet. And it's just about having that gold there that's nice and controlled, nice and subdued. And you can see those first couple of foils, they don't create a really strong money piece. They just create a little bit of softness around the front of the nail's hair there. I hope you've enjoyed this episode, and if you have, then subscribe if you're new to the channel. See loads more episodes like this, and I will see you again next week for another episode of The Life of Hair.